Good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of January 26, 2017 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting. Please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project that is returned for redesign by Design Review Board must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder the agenda items at his or her discretion. This will be roll call. Mr. Benlian? Here. Mr. Charchian?
Here.
Mr. Malekian?
Here.
And Mr. Simonian, I understand, is on his way. Report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on January 19th, 2017. Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware if we have any oral communications or not. We have two items scheduled for today on our agenda. Yes. Mr. Chairman.
So thank you, and I want to welcome everyone. It seems like we only have one person for the first case, so we're going to proceed with that. And the next case, I will be recusing myself, and until that time, Mr. Simonian should show up, so we will have a quorum. So let's proceed, and are we ready for that? Okay.
Our first. Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Our first case today is located at 1640 Thurber Place, case number PDR 1625478. The proposed project is an addition to the first floor of 545 square feet onto an existing 1,240 square foot single-story house, and the addition of a new second story of 1,065 square feet. At completion, the house would be a total of 2,850 square feet. Also, the architectural style will be changed from traditional to Spanish influence style. The existing house, which was built in 1948, is located on a 9,500 square foot lot zoned R1R restricted residential zone in the floor area ratio District 1. A portion of the existing roof will be maintained and a new roof is proposed. In addition, and also some of the windows and exterior walls will be replaced. In addition to that, the proposed work includes replacing the roofing material from asphalt shingles to multicolored Spanish S-tiles, replacing and or adding recessed windows with a dark bronze fiberglass clad window finish with a precast concrete molding underneath, providing smooth stucco for the house and fireplace chimney, changing the chimney cap to dark bronze, replacing the existing siding to hardy board for the entire wall in the front and partial on the north elevation, replacing all existing sliding doors with fiberglass clad wood doors. As mentioned, adding the precast concrete molding and also decorative tiles and new stairs at the front entry, and also adding wood rafter tails and replacing the garage roof material to match the house. The existing property is located in the El Miradero neighborhood along the western city boundary. So the homes across the street are actually in the city of Burbank. The front of the lot slopes slightly uphill, and there's an existing 2-foot high retaining wall near the north property line. And they're proposing to keep that wall as is. The 9,500 square foot lot is a little smaller than the average 12,554 square foot lot size of the lots in the neighborhood. Homes range in size from 1,691 to 6,095 square feet, with the average home size being 2,585 square feet. The neighborhood is a mix of 1- and 2-story homes. The average floor area ratio is 0.24. The applicant's proposal is for a 0.30 floor area ratio. And they're proposing to maintain the existing 40-foot front property line setback. In terms of site planning, staff believes the proposed site planning is appropriate, as the overall site planning is minimally changed. As I just mentioned, the existing front back will be maintained, and the driveway and garage will remain in keeping with the neighborhood pattern. And the majority of the existing landscaping will be maintained. The first floor addition is located at the rear, and the street-facing second story is set back approximately 19 feet from the first floor. The existing 5-foot 10-inch interior first floor setbacks are maintained, and portions of the second floor are stepped in 2 feet 6 inches on the north elevation and 2 feet 1 inch on the south elevation. There is a new 6-foot high wood fence that will be added along a portion of the south property line, and the existing wood gate will remain. In terms of mass and scale, staff believes the proposed massing and scale are appropriate. Overall, the impact of the addition size is mitigated by stepping the second-story addition back from the front of the house and on the sides, and adding onto the rear of the building. In terms of design and detailing, staff feels the design and detailing are appropriate. As mentioned, they will having the semi-smooth stucco, the dark bronze fiberglass clad wood windows with wood trim and precast concrete molding, wood shutters, and the Spanish S-type roof tiles and rafter tails, which all influence the Spanish style of the house. The proposed fiberglass wood with wood windows is appropriate. However, staff is recommending a condition of approval to eliminate the tile surround at the accent window near the front entry on the street-facing elevation, and instead provide a recessed window with wrought iron grille. And the facade changes update the overall character of the house. However, staff is recommending a condition of approval to redesign the railings and guardrails to be more in keeping with the style of the house. In the staff report, there was a conditional of approval to provide the locations for trap storage and air conditioning, although those actually are noted on the plan. So that would be taken out as a condition of approval. And there is one downspout location that staff was recommending that be better integrated with the design. Those are all staff's comments. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions for staff?
I have one question.
Yes.
How far back is the second floor setback from the first floor?
I would have to, 19 feet? 19 feet from the front?
Any more questions? No. Okay. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And we have only one speaker card, and it's Gregorian, Andy. Is it Andy Gregorian?
Thank you for the presentation, Kathy. Hi, my name is Gary Gregorian. Good evening, everybody.
Would you state your address as well?
Yes, it's 8522 Glen Oaks Boulevard, San Valley, California.
Thank you.
To not take too much of your time, I'll just go ahead and jump into the conditions. Number one, which is the tiles around the window at the front of the building. Staff proposes to eliminate those and just have iron design in the front of it, but we would like to keep that tiles because we think it adds some kind of flair to the design, but obviously we're not married to it, and if you have a better option or if you think we have to change it, well,
I'm sorry,
open
have
to
you
it.
provided a detail for that?
No, we don't have a detail for that.
So your tile
Go ahead.
detail is the surrounding tile details are just placed right on the face of the stucco? Or
No.
is it like, you know, you have some reveal or something that it's going?
It will project out about 3 inches.
Or it would project on?
Right,
it would-
the
you're
frame.
Putting it on the,
Right.
okay.
And also it will mimic the stairs. We have stairs covered with the tiles, and also the door frame, main entrance door frame would be also, will have those tiles, Spanish style tiles.
Okay. And just one quick question before you go on to the second one.
Mhm.
What are your wall thicknesses on the house?
Excuse me?
Wall thicknesses? Are they
Wall
2x4s, 2x6s?
Yeah, regular.
What is it, 2x4,
2 by 4s, 2 by 6. Number 2,
Mr. Chair, I didn't understand his response. He said 2x4, 2x6s.
No, it's a 2x4.
2 by 4s.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second.
And number 2, I would ask the staff to clarify further what kind of railings do you want us to have there, iron or wood? Right now we're proposing iron and wood. The wood one would be at the front, on the first level. The iron guardrails will be on the balconies on the second floor. That's what we're proposing. And there would be plain, straight.
We
Iron guard.
will discuss amongst ourselves and we'll
Okay.
give you a direction.
Okay.
And the next one?
As Katie said, number 3 would be out because we
Yes.
didn't provide that. Number 4 would be the downspout. It's in the end of the house, in the back side. And we have that, on that part actually the building cantilevers. And the staff's proposal was to do 90 angle gutter there. It's A4 sheet. All the way in the back of the building.
Okay, well, we'll discuss that. Is there anything else?
Okay, that's all.
Do we have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Is this a document that your office prepared?
No, that's the owner.
The owner prepared this?
Yeah, owner.
Okay, is the owner here?
No, he's not here.
Okay. And what is the floor area ratio for this lot? What's the allowable floor area ratio?
I'm not sure. I have
It's
to look
it's
into it.
.30.
0.0.
0.30.
0.30.
And what is your floor ratio for this project?
30.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I forgot to mention, we did receive a letter from a
Okay.
neighbor, which was attached in your packet regarding their concern about the massing of the rear.
Yes, we have received it.
Okay, just wanted to make
yeah,
sure
that-
we
Have you
Yes.
wanted to
mention
this?
that for
Okay.
record.
Yes.
Thank you. Let it be on record that Mr. Simonian has joined us. Welcome.
Good evening.
Evening. So we just closed the hearing for the first case, and because essentially we just listened to staff presenting the case. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, and if you have any questions for staff, or
I don't have any questions right
okay, then I'll just leave you at the end, and then we'll just kind of start at this
Fair
end. So
enough.
I'll give you some time. So, Mr. Brilliant?
So, in terms of the overall design, I agree with the staff's report. I think in terms of site orientation, it's consistent with the neighborhood.
This is Rod.
That's it. That's the call.
Got it, thank you.
All right.
Okay, I'll go again. So I tend to agree with the staff report in terms of site orientation. I think it works in terms of massing and scale. It works. I kind of have. I know you like the tile, and that's like one of the conditions. I tend to agree with staff. I think staff's recommendation will be more appropriate. And the other part that I have an issue with is also the fence in the front. So you've asked a question about that. So they're talking about the style of the metal itself. So the style of the metal for Spanish architecture, it's not this one. It's not the kind of like modern contemporary square. You know, it has like curves and design. So I think these are the two items that I think that can enhance the project. In terms of, as I mentioned, mass and scale works, orientation works. I like the second floor is set back far enough. I think staff verified that's 19 feet, so it's far away, so that breaks it apart. And you're setting back also the second floors on the interior setbacks as well. I think it's a well-designed project, and I'm in support.
Thank you. Mr. Churchian?
Okay. So I have serious concerns about the project, and here's why. First of all, I thought it was very disingenuous to have a property survey being circulated where we usually see what the proposed size of the building is going to be. And in fact, here it is actually the current size of the building at 13.05 floor area ratio. At the first glance, it seems to indicate that it's a small project, but in reality, it's going to have a floor area ratio right at 30%, which is the allowable in this area. We're not even a square foot shy. We're right there. So that kind of struck me a little bit. And when we look into it further, especially in the rear yard where you have not only the house cutting right into the 25-foot radius for the turnaround area for the garage, that's a bare minimum. You then have this patio, covered patio or semi-covered patio area that also cuts into that turning radius. In some respects, yes, they have improved the project with a Spanish design. The property that's there is a little dated and has lacks a lot of features, and this particular property has additional features, but it makes it, I think, a little bit too massive. It's sandwiched in between two other properties, and so I have reservations with the mass of the building, especially towards the rear. Additionally, I agree with staff. There is a disconnect on some of the details for the Spanish style. The railing in front looks like security railing that you'd see in a commercial project, not something that speaks to the Spanish style. I didn't understand from the materials provided how the tile features would work. I am a big fan of tiled entryways. I think that's a big and beautiful Spanish feature, very well executed in certain homes in Glendale. This one is a side-facing entrance that has this kind of hidden tile feature, and then the most prominent tile feature is on the windows. So I'm kind of lost as how it carries over, as the applicant was indicating, between the tile that's on the floor at the steps, and then the tile that's at the entry, and the tile that's being suggested for the one window. So there's that. And also, if we want to get into a lot of detail, Spanish tile is usually ribboned and not covered, as a full overall floor covering on the older Spanish styles. So I looked to my colleagues to provide the applicant some guidance on making it, a truly Spanish home. It feels more like a modern home with a few kind of add-ons, and that doesn't give it the feel that I think it needs to have to gain my support. And I would welcome their comments about that back area.
Thank you, Mr. Churchian.
Thank you. I take it there was only one speaker card, and that was
it.
the applicant on this
Yes.
project. Although I did come in late, so I wasn't privy to staff's presentation, but I have had a chance to review the packet, and also, of course, having the advantage of listening to my colleagues. Insofar as the detailing of the house is concerned, I do echo some thoughts as well, in that
Thank you.
we have a Spanish style, however, we have some shutters in the entry, in the front facade, which is kind of a federal, let's say, style of architecture. The window sills in the way that, are just stucco bands, don't quite work as well as they would, let's say, with some wood sills, et cetera. And I'm dwelling on these just because there were a couple of comments about, what are those little nuances that we should talk about. The entryway and the entry porch, the way it steps up, as you can even see in the rendering, has this solid, let's say, stucco base to it. However, it certainly stands out and doesn't seem to be very appropriate. Might be better served with some sort of a brick planter in front of it, or some sort of a band at the base of the building, which would kind of tie it together, anchor it better onto the site. We have very traditional kind of ornamental ironwork on some of the accent windows, and then we have more of a contemporary windows overall in the house without any grids, which kind of conflicts in itself. If you're going to go with more of the traditional wrought iron accent bars over the windows, you might as well kind of integrate the window grids into the overall style. So it's really trying to be a contemporary Spanish, but it's not quite there. It's not quite contemporary enough, and it has some components of the traditional, and that's why it seems odd. Similar things are occurring, as I'm noticing, in the rear with the base. You have those Nana doors, sliding multi-slide door in the back, and then you kind of have this abrupt jog, and you're not really integrating it as you would in the landscape drawings, etc. So overall, the mass of the building, I do agree, it steps back, although it's right at the cusp of the square footage. When you look at the mass and the way it steps back and the setbacks seem to work. I don't particularly have an issue with the mass and bulk and feel of the home. And some of the details are done right. In other words, we have the exposed rafter tails, which is quite nice, and we also have the traditional beams under the overhang in the rear, which is nice. But I think it would really benefit with a cohesive gridded set of windows, perhaps, maybe, if that's the direction we're going, with maybe more of a traditional wood sill, more of a band at the bottom of the building to set itself and anchor itself right. And then if we are going to have some ornamental tile, that really could serve as more of the focal point at the entryway as well, where we have the entry porch. Well, that could have some sort of a decorative Spanish style tile at its base instead of, let's say, a planter. So overall, those were the general thoughts. As far as the radius, look, they're pushing it right to the maximum layout, and that's why they're barely making it. It's an internal backup, and which a lot of existing homes have in the area anyways, and most of the times it's very hard to get in and out of those garages to begin with. But it's kind of nice how the garage is pushed to the rear, and once you push it to the rear, you do eat up the square footage of the rear yard, whether you like it or not, with the turning radius. But the mass and bulk of the building seems to be there, so we just got to fine tune the details. Those were my thoughts, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments, and I think overall, I appreciate Mr. Charchin's noting on the square footages and inconsistency. So I think overall, the site and the building itself, the massing and the size and overall, we have an average of 0.24, an average size of about a 2,600 square foot house. This is a 2,800 square foot house in average. So I don't have much problem with the size, but as far as the detailing, I agree with you, and I think being consistent with the overall design. If it's a contemporary, then let's move towards that direction. If it's more of a traditional, I think we should move towards that direction. I think there's a lot of details that we have to kind of incorporate. If we are going to be adding the buttons on the windows, and I think the wood sill would work. The base tiles at the steps, I think it should be more on the face of the threads rather than wrapping them all around. Possibly even adding some stones, so you add some details there. So I think all of these bring the whole, the details all, together. I think overall, I think it's fine. I'm fine with the project, but there's definitely the detailing consistency. So I think overall, as far as the front setback and other things like that, they're having a 40-foot setback. I don't have the existing, the actual, the
Existing survey?
survey, exactly, and I don't know if this is I couldn't measure what was there right now, so I don't know the difference between the old and the new, but I think it seems like you're pushing a little bit in front of it. So, so overall, I think it's fine. I would look at the back area, how you have the trellis and how it's coming out. I think the proportion of the lumber and I guess you can use a timber instead of a regular lumber, as you're doing in the front. So I think that would really help the detailing of that nature. As far as the front entry and the tile, as the staff mentioned, I would go with a thicker entry profile of the wall thickness, possibly even going with a double wall of a 12-inch, angling them in and then creating a more recessed tile around the door, and that would give you a much better presence rather than applying the tile right over the face of the. So all of these start playing and adding additional detail and pulling this whole house together. But overall, I'm fine. But again, going back to Mr. Charchian's comment that the size and the mass and the scale of this, there are large homes around there. So he has managed to step these back. Yeah, we can have him reduce a little bit so he's not right on the cusp as you've suggested. But other than that, I don't know if you have any other comments or.
I find myself probably in the minority on this, so I'll let it be. But I think your suggestion about the front entry doubling up the size, putting it more of a recessed kind of tile would be more truer to the style. So I would join you in that recommendation, and otherwise I'll let it be.
So if we can hear the comments and suggestions, I guess.
So we have, essentially there's an issue as to whether it goes traditional or contemporary. If it goes more traditional, then we might be looking at gridded windows to follow through on that. We'd be looking, and alternatively, without the gridded windows, if it was more contemporary. We'd be looking at wood sills, an ornamental, at the ornamental tile, to remove it at that front window and go more with, as was proposed, recessed window with the wrought iron. Look at how the tile is applied at the steps. Put it more so on the face and not wrapping around the sides. In general, overall, look at the details so that it follows more consistently. At the trellis at the rear, look at the proportions and how it's applied to make that feel better. And then also at the entry, use a 12-inch or a double wall, get more thickness to get more emphasis and recess at the entry. Look at the railings and how they're detailed. There was also the talk about adding some type of a bass band, or whether it's a brick planter to better define the building and break up the stucco. The ornamental ironwork, be more consistent on that. Some is more contemporary in feel, some is more traditional.
I think the ironwork comment, sorry, Mr. Chair, feeds into the concern about the rails in the front.
And we also had, there were a number of locations on the downspouts that were very awkward, that we would just also recommend, staff had recommended looking at that as well.
Okay.
Those comments would be in addition to the conditions 1, 2, and 4.
We
Or
eliminated
some of them
number
are
3, right?
we eliminated 3, so.
Yes.
So in addition to those.
Yes. Okay, so,
I move to approve the project with those conditions as stated in the report, less number 3, plus the new conditions that were itemized.
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Board Member Benlian,
Yes.
Board Member Tarchian,
Yes.
Board Member Simonian,
Yes.
Chair Malakian.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0 to approve with conditions.
Thank you. So on our next case, I will need to recuse myself. So I would like to pass the baton to.
We'll need
Would you
to,
like to?
Sure.
Okay. Lauren, let's move this over, or?
Also, Mr. Pro Tem Chair, I believe somebody needs to leave at what time?
I do, but I've indicated when we're not here that DRB will take precedence of my social calendar.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. And what I've done is I've separated these.
Really?
Yeah. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. There might be a chance after all. All right, having assumed the role of Chair Pro Tem, I will go ahead and call the next case. Are we ready? PDR 162-5173, 3310 Vickers Drive. Can we have the staff's report, please?
Good evening and thank you. The applicant's proposal is to build a new one-story, 2,350 square foot single-family house with a 658 square foot attached two-car garage on an existing lot located at 3310 Vickers Drive. The project site is located in the R1R single-family zone, floor area District 2. The project site is a 9,387 square foot pie-shaped interior lot that slopes up from the street with frontage on Vickers. The site was originally developed in 1953 with a one-story, 1,790 square foot single-family home with an attached two-car garage and designed in the ranch style. In April of 2016, the property owner obtained a building permit for a minor addition, interior remodel, and a new roof for a portion of the house that was at that time exempt from DRB. During the construction process, demolition of more than 50% of the outside wall and roof area did occur. A stop work order was issued, and the property owner was required to file for design review as a new construction project. In accordance with the zoning code, as a new residence, all non-conforming rights, including setbacks and parking, are forfeited, and the project must comply with all development standards for a new single-family house in this zone. In terms of site planning, the new house is centrally sited on the lot and located on an existing flat pad. There is no grading proposed with the project. The proposal does not include any significant alterations to the existing site planning. Overall, the proposed 15-foot street front setback and site planning is consistent with the surrounding area. The attached two-car garage is being brought approximately 5 feet closer to the street. The original development featured a setback of about 20 feet. The expanded garage is sited at the front of the property and oriented perpendicular to Vickers Drive. The southerly elevation features staggered building walls that are not consistent with a traditional ranch-style development, where a more regularized footprint is typical. The staggering of this elevation is a result of the pie-like shape of the lot, the minimum required 10-foot interior setback, and the orientation of the lot at the curve of the street. These conditions, along with the uphill nature of the lot, make this elevation visible from the street. A condition is recommended that this elevation be regularized to avoid the excessive staggering that's inconsistent with the selected style. This will also help with the awkward roof forms that are at this elevation. The existing driveway with decorative brick will be maintained in its current condition. The northerly interior setback area is proposed to be primarily concrete with some landscaping. A condition is recommended that the amount of hardscape proposed at this location be reduced and more consideration given to the use of permeable paving materials. As it relates to mass and scale, the neighborhood pattern features 1- and 2-story homes with attached garages. The applicant's proposal is consistent with the pattern and will maintain a 1-story residence with an attached 2-car garage. The overall height of the new 1-story house will be 18 feet 5 inches. That's an increase of about 1.5 feet from the original home, which was 16 feet 10 inches its maximum height. The new 658 square foot attached 2-car garage does introduce a larger mass towards the front of the property, closer to the street. A consideration is recommended that massing be reduced. In terms of detailing, the project features a similar design aesthetic as the previous home. The consistent use of materials and colors throughout the project do help reinforce the ranch-style design. The covered porch entryway is integrated into the design and features wood entry door with side lights. The new windows will be white fiberglass, single-hung windows with clear glass, and will be recessed in the openings with wood sills and frames. The vertical wood siding with a brick veneer base for the front elevation in the garage, and the smooth stucco finish for all other elevations is appropriate to the style, and it's actually consistent with the original home. Staff is recommending approval of the project with conditions and one consideration as noted in the staff report. Also, as it relates to comments received for the project, the applicant has submitted a copy of a petition with signatures of people in support of the project, and I placed that in front of you at the dais. That concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair Pro Tem,
Yes,
I have some questions. but
please, go
You
ahead.
want to go first?
No,
Steph had mentioned that there were some inconsistencies with grade or another, or double retaining walls or something or another that you wanted to fix in the beginning of the presentation. What were you referring to? If I'm-
Retaining walls?
Something about the rear that you wanted to
No.
modify.
The rear of the design? None of our conditions really reflect anything in the rear. The conditions really just have to do with hardscape, the garage, and then the south elevation, the way the building walls stagger at that elevation.
Can you come up and point to
Sure.
the area that you're referring to? And there's a pointer, I think, by Mr. Bellion. Thank you.
So this southerly elevation right here, where the building walls stagger, it's being pushed. This reflects the 10-foot interior setback line, which is their new required setback. Whereas before, they really only had to be 4 feet away from the property line, even though they were a little further. So you see it. Sorry, let me grab my bearings. see it here, and then at this elevation with this roof form here, and then you see it best in the renderings here, which you should have in your packet.
Okay. And then you mentioned something about the mass and height and scale of the garage roof being reduced?
The size of the garage overall being reduced, it's a consideration. It's something we wanted to bring to your attention. It is, the minimum requirement would be 20 by 20 interior. This is 25 by 24 interior, so there is some room. It does lead to the garage door kind of being off-centered, and it's just a lot more mass at that part of the street that wasn't there before, whereas this is more or less what it was originally. Up to you.
Thank you.
So, are you?
Yes.
Mr. Bellini, do you have any
Go
questions?
for it.
Okay. So I have I'm a little confused by something. I want a little clarification from staff. What do we define as neighbors? Is it the people that live in the 500-foot radius, or of the?
That's correct.
Okay. Because we've been handed this document, and it's a design review meeting with neighbors, and it indicates people that are in favor. But we have addresses that I don't recognize as even being in Glendale. Are these people that were, has staff looked at this, and have they compared this list to the actual neighbors? Because it is stamped filed. with the
Right, it was submitted, that was a petition that the applicant provided. I'm not sure who attended his meeting. That was a meeting he had with his neighbors. Those may have been people that were in attendance at that meeting. For whatever reason, I would defer it to him. I did recognize the same thing, but again, it was a comment submitted by the applicant.
Okay. Thank you. And then I believe the comment cards were a little shuffled, so I wanted to find out who is the actual first speaker, who had requested to be the speaker. What is your name, sir? Okay. We will find your comment card in a minute. Any other questions for staff?
Nope.
Okay, I'll go ahead and ask the applicant to come up, please. Please state your name and address if you'd like for the record.
Sure. Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, board members. My name is Varujan Deronyan. I'm the owner of property 3310 Vickers Drive. Thank you for allowing present today at this venue. Before I start, would like to spend a couple of minutes and provide some background on how we arrived at this presentation. After several years of searching for a home, my wife and I found the property at Vickers. We fell in love with the property, the location, the look and feel of the neighborhood, and the school district. We knew we could call this place our home, where we can raise our kids, our 6-year-old son who goes to Glendale Unified School District, and our 4-year-old daughter who attends a Christian preschool in Glendale. We knew that the house had some issues, most notably termite damages, water problems. And we also knew that we wanted to make it a little bit bigger to fit our family. After settling in, we secured permits to remodel the house and added 330 square feet to include another bedroom and change the interior to include vaulted ceiling. We started remodeling in July 2016. Although we were only adding a few hundred square foot, because we were changing the interior ceiling from flat to vaulted ceiling, we had to demolish several walls and a portion of the roof. However, our plan was to preserve the existing architectural look and feel of the ranch style, because that is what we felt in love with. During construction, our contractor identified structural components of the house that were rotted and termite damaged that requires replacement. As a result, the project required more demolition than expected. But the interior finish dissolve never changed. Unfortunately, during demolition, some of the structural members were so rotted that one of the walls we planned to keep collapsed, causing us to cross the threshold from remodeling to new construction. So construction stopped, and we start the process of working with city to meet the requirements for new construction, which required us to present at this design review meeting today. But to us, the project was still a remodel, because even though the new construction requirements now applied, we were and still intend to simply rebuilding what was already there. For the past several months, we have been working very closely with the city staff. I would like to express my appreciation of their support in this process. I believe that as you review the project, you will find that we have met all the requests of the staff, and the project complies with all the design criteria this board would like to review. I understand there were concerns among the neighbors about what is being built on our property, particularly as more of the house was demolished than expected. I'm certain that the demolition process led many of them to believe we were building something different out of character for this nice neighborhood. To help our neighbors understand what is going on, we organized a meeting on December 3rd at the property, where we showed our plans and explained the situation. We had 25 to 30 neighbors attending, and we answered their questions about what is being done. I believe that everyone who attended that meeting left with an understanding that what's being built looks exactly or almost the same as previously. I want to express my appreciation to patients of our neighbors and hope that with plans we have now shown everyone, that they understand that we are simply rebuilding what was already there. For those neighbors that were not able to attend, we posted on the property, in addition to the design review board notification sign, a separate board with rendering and color elevation to show how the finished home would look like. Overall, we received lots of support from our neighbors. Some called me and let me know that they appreciate the extra step we took to help neighbors understand what we are doing. About 25 of them signed a petition, and we submitted, and we just reviewed that. I understand there are others who might still have questions. So I hope with today's presentation and with the support of Design Review Board approval, we will gain their support so we can build our home and move our family back home and raise our kids. The remaining of time, I would like to give it to David, or unless if there are questions.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Sure.
So this document that says neighbors, design review meetings with neighbors, this was the meeting that you're referring to.
Yeah.
The people that signed these are the immediate neighbors?
There were various people that attended. I invited many people to attend, and you can see they're residents of Glendale, so I invited.
I can't see that, sir. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
Because there's only incomplete addresses.
Incomplete addresses.
Yes, they have street names, but they don't indicate the city.
Mhm.
They don't indicate zip code. That's why I was asking.
If required, we can certainly add that.
It's not a requirement. This document is not a requirement, but when the document is submitted, I want to understand what the
Oh, okay.
document is.
All right. Any other
The second
questions?
question I have for you, sir, is part of our packet had this document. It's labeled "Original Development Prior to Demolition." Are you familiar with this document?
Yes, that's our original.
And
yeah.
so the layout that's in here on A11, is this a layout that depicts what you were going to build, or is this just a depiction of what the layout was
That was the layout that it was
that existed?
existing.
Quick question to staff. Does staff have the original?
I do, and I can grab it for you. And the reason why that wasn't included with your package, just as a point of clarification for the record, is because that permit was never finalized. It's not really valid.
No,
But I have
because
a-
I wanted to clarify some of the
Yeah,
representation.
that's fine. I have a copy.
Mr. Chairman Pro Tem, this was the existing building from the 50s, or is this what was approved as?
Existing from
No, I think this is the comment, my understanding of the gentleman's comment is that this was a rendering of what the building looked like before.
Yeah, from 1953, basically.
It was before it was to be added to, which explains that. Are there any other questions?
Not right now. I see a lot of speakers, so I'm
So-
sure we'll have a rebuttal period, in which
Yes.
case we'll probably have a better idea of our questions.
Thank you so much. Okay, so then I'm going to call up Mr. David.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a different David. Mr. David Groff-Sleeman, then? And we will find your speakers card. I think someone was trying to be helpful, but in the process, it,
Thank you.
But, sir,
I think Mr. Duronian was trying to cede the rest of his
Your
time
name,
to me on his
I'm
council.
actually going to limit you to 3 minutes because of the number of speakers, and I don't think
That's fine. I won't take more than 3
Yeah,
minutes.
and then you'll have an
Your name for
opportunity to
the record.
rebuttal.
My name is David Kraus-Lehman. I'm an attorney representing Mr. Duronian. I want to speak primarily to the conditions that the staff mentioned, with specificity with respect to the condition on staggering. The staggering that's required, if you look at the layout under the project proposal that's at the top, that's because when the original construction existed, the setback on the northern elevation was much less than the setback required for new construction. So as a result, because of the change in setbacks when they moved from the remodel process to the new construction process, the entire mass of the building had to be shifted to the south. And so in order to keep the existing square footage and then add the new square footage that was the point of the project all along, the design included the addition of some square footage to the southern portion of the building that required staggering because otherwise, being a pie-shaped lot, you were going to have some off angles. I think the architect did a good job on the southern elevation with respect to causing the roof line and the staggering to blend to create an optical illusion as you drive on Vickers to give it still the ranch style look. So if you look at the color rendering on the bottom right of the 4 colors renderings there, it's the one on the lower left-hand corner, it still presents the appearance of a ranch style home as you drive up Vickers, while giving the applicant the ability to have the extra square footage that was lost when the setback moved from the north to the south. I think with respect to the standards that are required under Glendale Municipal Code Section 30.47040 that the board is supposed to follow, any new design in construction is supposed to include additional changes in material, height, variations in the vertical and horizontal plane. So even though the idea here is to rebuild an existing ranch-style home and keep it in the ranch style, we're not in the 1950s anymore. Even ranch-style homes, the look and feel has changed a little bit. And I thought the architect did a good job here blending the idea of the ranch style with a little bit more modern style in the back to give the applicant the additional room without losing the look and feel of the neighborhood. So I would ask that the board give consideration to removing that requirement from the staff proposal to allow the applicant to keep the staggering. If that is something the board decides it doesn't want to do, then the applicant has a proposal for an alternative, which would be to change the roof slope on the southern elevation so that instead of the soaring roof that you have with the staggers where the wall ends here and the roof comes up like this, the applicant could add traditional ranch-style element roofing to those different elevations that would make it look like the rest of the neighborhood.
Sure.
Does the architect have sketches of this proposed alternative B?
I believe we do have the proposed alternative B sketches with us. I believe Mr. Duronian has them with him.
It'd be good if you bring it up at some point.
All right. I'll have him do that after I finish my comments. With respect to the other condition on the hardscaping, the applicant doesn't have any problem with that condition, is more than willing to comply. With respect to the request that consideration be given to the massing of the garage, we're talking about a very minimal increase in massing. I think the scale of the drawings is a little bit off in terms of them being exactly the same. The original development, the project proposal are slightly different in size, I think. But the mass of the garage isn't that much different than the rest of the neighborhood. It's made slightly larger because garages are built a little bit bigger today, and Mr. Duronian wanted some place to be able to store things and do some work. But I think if you look at the design of the house and the renderings, there really isn't any reason to reduce the mass of the garage because it looks consistent with the rest of the neighborhood and the house design itself.
Okay, are we done?
I'm done.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to interrupt you because we did ask a question, but we did go over time.
No, I appreciate that.
Seeing that we have a large number of speakers, you can provide that to staff. So seeing that we have a large number of speakers, I'm going to try to limit everyone to 3 minutes. Usually we go 2, but I'm assuming that since there's a lot of in favors,
Same thing?
that if you hear someone closer to the mark, it's on.
It's up?
The line is on.
It says it's up.
I'll speak more into the mic. Seeing that there's a large number of speakers, if you hear someone that is basically voicing your viewpoint and has already spoken, you can, of course, either choose not to speak or come up and reiterate that you're in favor. Thus, we will all be able to leave at a reasonable hour today and get this resolved. With that said, I would like to call up the first speaker, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize, but it looks like it's Vahans Abide, or Vehans Abide.
Thank
Please
you.
state your name and your address if you'd like for the record.
Valence Abedi, address is 1133 North Concord Street, apartment B, Glendale, California, 91202. Thank you for hearing me out. I would like to say that I'm in favor of this project, and I have been following the renovations, and I believe that it's very consistent with the neighborhood, the look and the look of the design itself, the ranch style, and well, I'm just going to cut it short. I'm for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Eddie Sarkisian. Mr. Sarkisian, please state your name and your address for the record if you'd like to.
Good evening. My name is Edik Sarkisian. Address 1919 Montecito Drive in Glendale, 91208, about 1/10 of a mile from this property. I'm supportive of this project, and I think that's going to be a great enhancement for our neighborhood. Looking forward to have that house completed. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you,
you.
sir. Our next speaker is Satanik Nazarian. Ms. Nazar? State your name and address for the record if
Hi,
you'd
good
like.
evening. My name is Sato Nazarian. My address is 1133 North Concord, apartment number B, Glendale 91110. I'm support this project. I'm from resident of Glendale.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Amy Tarosian? Please state your name and address for the record if you'd like.
Yes, my name is Hermine Torosian, Amy Torosian, and I'm the owner of 3310 Vickers property. And I'm here to ask for your approval so we can build our house and move our family back in. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize, Ms. Tarosian. The designation of owner was checked, but it was placed in middle of the pile, so usually you would have come up earlier. If you have any other comments, you can join in the rebuttal period.
That's pretty much it. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Daniel Janoyan.
My name is Daniel Janoyan. I have been living on Vickers for the last 24 or 25 years. I've been working my children and grandchildren, enjoying all the houses and looking at several homes. And I believe that the new project is in conformity with the houses that are in the neighborhood. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sevak Markarian.
Sevak Markarian, 600 West Starker Street, apartment 112A, Glendale, California, 91202. Dear board members and staff, I was driving through that area because very similar to the owner, I was looking for a house where I can have my two kids in a house versus in a apartment where they can play. So when I saw the building and what he's gonna build, so I decided to come in here because I see myself being in this position maybe in a year or two from now, where the houses that are gonna buy there is pretty old, termite, have issues with the health for my kids, and that makes me to move to some other area which I don't want because I really love Glendale. So also looking at the requirements right now with the toys and everything happening, I fully understand the applicant is looking for a bigger space, garage or whatever is for storage. So looking at that one and seeing myself being here for in a year from now, I really in favor for the project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Marine Bagumian. And Ms. Bagumian, before you start, I just want to clarify so I don't keep repeating myself. You do need to state your name for the record. The address is optional. If you'd like to give it, you've already filled it out on the forms. Okay?
Perfect.
That applies to all speakers. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maureen Bagumian, and my address is 1451 East Wilson Avenue, apartment number 5, Glendale, California, 91206. I'm in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Aragnaz Nazarian.
I'm Mareknaz Nazarian. My address is 1921 Calafia Street, Glendale, California, 91208. I support this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Arno Merabi.
Hi everyone, my name is Arno Mehrabi. I'm living in the neighborhood, and basically the reason I'm here is to say I'm supporting this project. I believe the only reason that I ended up here is just bad luck. As the owner mentioned, the property had termite damage, and they had to basically demolish more than required. Pretty much that's all I want to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Arbi Barserian, excuse me, Arbi Barserian.
Good evening, board members and staff. My name is Arbi Barsegian. I live at 1810 Glencoe Way, Glendale, California, 91208. I'm a business owner also in that same area, and my children go to school, at a local school. Just to keep it short but give a brief history of how I came about meeting Mr. Doronian. I was one of the people that actually received the invitation to attend the meet and greet on December 3rd. I had an opportunity to see the rendering, the current, and what it was going to be after the construction or the proposed construction. And I felt that the two were comparable. There was not a great deal of difference. And I felt like it fit the neighborhood. There was not a great deal of change when this project was said and done. So from my perspective, and just having the opportunity to see it from a street view and look at the rendering, my position was to support the project, and that's what brought me here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Hadayat Nazarian.
Good evening. My name is Haray Nazarian. My address is 1547 Irving Avenue, Glendale. Zip code is 91201. I support this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If there are any speakers in the audience that'd like to speak, you can fill out a speaker card on the right over here and then hand it to staff. Thank you so much.
Just on the other side.
Just on the other side. This looks like Gary Stepanosian.
Good afternoon. Gary Stepanosian, 1716 Halsted Street, Northridge, California. I'm the original contractor on the project. We start the job, we started demolition. It was supposed to be 50% of the project demo. But unfortunately, when we opened the wall, some of the wall was all rotten, was caving in. So what happened on the backside of the building, the wall collapsed, and we still have the wall sitting on the property. The bottom seal was very underneath the dirt. Basically, the hills, the building was built, the dirt of the property was over the sill plate. So in 40, 50 years, the dirt and water and all those caused the termite and rotten on the bottom portion of the building. So unfortunately, I couldn't save it. So we can save it or lift it up, change the bottom seal. Basically, it couldn't happen. So that's what happened. You know, we got back to drawing board and having this structural redesign. But as far as the footprint of the property, still is same, except a little bit alternation. So when we went to this direction, so we have to add a couple of 100 square feet on a building. But as far as the roof line and the building and everything, it still is we're keeping most of the concrete and footprint of the house. I'm in favor of the project.
Is there any questions since this was the builder? And again, I apologize, sir. We would have normally taken you earlier in the procession, being that you're an involved party to the project. But are there any questions for the builder?
I might have a few. After we hear everybody in the audience, we might get a more holistic
I can wait.
idea. Then at that point,
Yes,
you
I'll
might
be glad to
available
stay
for
and
some
wait
questions.
if you answer any
That would be
question.
nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I may have called this name, but it's Vana Abedi. Did I call you already? I called another Abedi.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Van Abedi. My address is 1133 Concord Street, Glendale, California, 91202. I do support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Mehrabi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Mehrabi. My address is 1717 Don Carlos, Glendale, California, 91208. I am in favor of this project, and I think it's going to look great if they let it finish. Thank you.
Thank you. Arsen Yola.
Hey everyone, my name is Arsen Yolian. I'm resident of Montecito Park, and the house that the van is trying to build, I guess it doesn't have any, I guess it's similar to the house that it was built before, so I'm in favor to project too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Lena Magdarian. No, I'm sorry, Magdamian.
Hello, my name is Lena Magadamian, and as a resident of Glendale, I'm in support of this project. Thank you.
Shant Gurjan. Gurjan, sorry.
My name is Shant Gurjan. I'd like to say that I've actually been inside the house before any demolition happened, and from what I can gather, not being an architect, but from what I can gather from the architectural designs, it certainly seems like it's within the ballpark of a ranch-style home and the surrounding homes. So I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Christine Stepanyan.
Hi, my name is Christine Stepanyan. I'm a Glendale resident. My address is 1124 East Chestnut Street, Glendale, California, and zip code is 91205. I'm a third-year architecture student at Woodbury University, and after reviewing the floor plans, renderings, and the elevations, I'm in support with the project, and it seems that it's very consistent with the layout and all the elevations, and the look is very consistent with the neighborhood and stuff. And I'm in support with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Arshavir Nazarian.
It's a rare Indian name, nobody can pronounce it if you did it correctly. Yeah, my name is Nazarian Arshavir. I'm in favor of this building project, Mr. Darian family. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we call Mr. Daniel Janoyan?
Yes.
Thank you. I forgot to check that off. Valerie Petrit?
My name is Valerie Petrock, and I live at 2002 Oak Valley Road in Glendale. I've lived in that house for 45 years, and I'm going to read this if you don't mind, because I don't want to miss anything. My backyard is adjacent to the backyard at 3310 Vickers. I have a common easement in the back of my yard, and I pay the property taxes on that easement. This easement also runs between my house and the Morellis, and then from the Morellis' property, it also runs down past Vickers, goes down to Vickers Drive. Ms. Morelli has graciously kept the whole easement beautifully landscaped and watered and weeded, which has been an agreeable arrangement for more than 30 years. The problem began when the owner of the 3310 Vickers decided to tear down the fence between his property and the Morelli property. It seems he wanted to use this easement land for his remodel. He's also torn out the plantings that Ms. Morelli put in and the sprinklers, and it's left her with absolutely no privacy. I've seen the drawings of the future house on Vickers, and it looks much like the original. But I haven't seen any drawings of the back. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to put a 23,000 or 2,350 square foot house on that small lot. I'm sorry, I'm very, very nervous. Also, what type of landscaping will they have? What will they implement? Because my property looks right down on that. These are some of the questions that I have. All we've ever asked was for them to maintain the integrity of the easement, which is a CC&R, the original fence, and to ensure Morelli's privacy, to maintain the old sycamore tree at the corner of Vickers in the front yard. That's all we ever wanted. Nothing to do with the house, really. We want to avoid this kind of situation in the future so that our neighborhood can remain quiet and peaceful, and that we don't have any disregard for anyone's privacy. One other thing I would like to know, or request a regulation construction fence around the property during construction so that people are ensured protection, because there's no protection anymore. And as far as the termites and things like that, my house has been there for 45 years. We've never had any problems. So I thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry I'm so nervous.
I hope we're not making you nervous.
No, you're not, and I thank you very much.
And I think we might have some questions for you, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
I think it's pronounced Petrock?
Petrock.
Petrock. So, Ms. Petrock, do you live in this property over here, number 14?
Can I go over there?
Of course, come on
Please
out.
approach. Yeah.
So we have Vickers here. This is the subject property.
Yes.
And you live here. And,
This is the corner house on Vickers,
okay,
and this is mine, 2002.
that's what I kind of thought. And then you kept on referring to a Miss Morelli. Is that,
Ms. Morelli, yeah.
and she lives in number 13?
She lives in the one that is here.
Oh, over here.
My house, this is my house. My backyard backs up to this house, and it backs up to this house.
Understood.
And then there's this easement, which is a water area for rains and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And we've always been notified. When I bought my house, I knew that easement was there. And I paid the property taxes on the easement, but she landscapes it.
Okay.
Because my fence is at the top, then my property goes down below, and it's a real slope.
You're looking down onto the property.
Looking down, and it's a real slope. So she, for 30 years, she has maintained property, the landscaping, the watering, and the weeding of that property.
And according to the CCNRs ask for certain landscaping and maintenance of the property?
Yes, because if nope, I can't go over my fence.
Of course, I understand.
And it would just get weeded.
And so your concern, if I may understand, now that I understand the general location of the easement, is that this area at the rear of the subject property be maintained and the landscape to...
No, that's the back of his property. That looks into my yard. The easement is along here.
I see. And so the easements along the property, there's no easement along the
No,
rear of the
not
property. And your concern or your questions is how is the rear of this property going to be landscaped and improved, and what your view will be into that area?
Well, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. While you're up here, I was going to ask for you to come back here, but since you're up here, will you show me where that sycamore is?
It's right down here at the corner of the house.
It's on their property.
Yeah, it's a great big old sycamore.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna, before we take the next speaker, staff, is there a tree report?
Thank you, Board Member Charchian. There actually is not a tree report. Our urban forester, during the initial permitting process back in April, and then during the demolition process during the summer, when this was an issue, it was requested that he go out. He did go out to the site. He did view what was there, and he determined that, you know, the statement on the plans was accurate, that there are no oak bays or sycamore trees on the property. He did provide me with an email back in August that kind of summarized his visit, which I will give to you, but the species of that sycamore tree in particular is not one of the protected species of a sycamore tree.
And staff, we're referring to this tree over here, right?
I believe so, but I believe he assessed the property
The entire
and the
property.
vicinity.
I see. And is this tree, because I haven't located a landscape plan yet, but is this existing tree remaining, or is it proposed to be cut?
It is proposed to remain. The existing landscaping is proposed to be maintained on site pretty much as is, with the exception of, you know, some added landscaping along the north for a vegetable garden, and then there is no proposal to remove anything. I can defer that to the applicant, but that's my understanding.
And insofar as the rear of the property is concerned, and how the landscaping is going to be treated at the rear, since this is a new submittal, have there been any landscape drawings that have been submitted as to how the applicant proposes to landscape the property?
The rear was always kind of a rear lawn area, and that is his intention. During the last, that permit process, and the issue with demolition came up, there was some nominal grading that occurred in the rear yard. During that process, it wasn't enough to trigger any type of engineering requirement, however, and it was a non-issue at the time and still would be. The lawn was removed. They are proposing to put a lawn back, kind of have a play area.
I think we should get back to the speakers, Mr. Simonian. I think we can get to the questions earlier, but the question that was important there was that there is no landscape plan that's been submitted to us at this time, and so we don't have an opportunity to review it while we also listen to the speakers simultaneously. I'm going to call up the next speaker, and is this Alice? 2002 Oak Valley? I am so sorry, but
give it a shot. It's Allie Bjornrud.
Allie Bjornrud.
Rude.
Bjornrud?
Bjornrud.
Oh, it's BJORNRUD.
Yes.
I couldn't make out the letters.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. So yes, I'm at 2002 Oak Valley Road in Glendale, 91208. That is my mother that was up speaking earlier. Basically what I wanted to cover is the whole thing, again, going back to the easement. Just have the concerns that that is going to stop the natural water flow, and especially now that we're finally having some rain, and it does, the water does come up from underneath as well as come down from on top. And that's a concern because we don't want any slides. I don't know, I mean, according to what I saw on that diagram, that first diagram up there where it's what'd you call it? It's cut out. From what I can see, that goes right to the very edge of the embankment that she was talking about. And that's one of our concerns, is that with the rain we're having and how close he's building to that there could be a problem of that just collapsing. Because as far as I understand, you're not supposed to build, I don't know what the actual footage is, but to that easement. I may be wrong, I don't know if the laws have changed, but also, I haven't seen anything of what the actual back of the house is going to look like, since we look, down into his yard. It'd be nice to see something of how far back that is coming, and like she said, that you've already discussed about what they might be planting in there as far as, vegetation. But I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say. I mean, personally, I don't have any problem with the looks of the house. Like she said, it does look very similar to what it was. But, the fence that we have between our properties. He has put a fence up there which is taller than what used to be, which is fine, but it's not very secure. It's not very, considering where it sits up above his yard, it needs to be, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Mounted better or stabilized better.
More permanent.
Yeah, because concern of ours, again, that might, I know he had a concern with the neighbor's wall between him and our other next door neighbor, because it's a brick wall or a concrete wall, but we're also concerned about this fence, because we just had a neighbor on the other side put up a fence, and it is really stable. It's solid. That's not going anywhere, and we feel like we would be more comfortable having that type of fence between our yard and his as well.
And what type of fence is that?
Well, right now he's just...
No, the one you're describing, is it a wood fence?
It's a wood fence, yes.
If I'm standing at the rear of your property, how big of a grade difference is there between your property at the corner here and the rear of the subject property?
How much of a grade
Yeah,
difference?
like in other words, is it 4 feet different? Yeah, what's the vertical difference between them?
Are you saying from like our backyard down to his?
That's right.
Oh, okay. God, that's got to be at least, I don't know, 20 feet, 16, 20 feet?
Is that big of a difference?
Yeah.
That's like 2 stories.
From our ground, yeah, from our,
Okay.
me standing on our ground to if I was standing down on his ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, this is David Morrell.
Yeah, no, I'll wait. I'm an interested party. I'll wait my concerns.
Okay. Craig Tweedy.
Good evening.
Sorry for the official uniform. I just got off work. I live at 3311 Vickers, right across the street from the property. I've had extensive conversations with Mr. Duronian. I'm really not opposed of what he's presented here. However, my concern is how we got to this point. And it started with what was a 290 square foot addition to watching literally walls and roofs and everything get torn down. So unfortunately, I've been looking at a demolished house for the last 4 months, which, we're dealing with. But it's more of just my concerns as to what's going to happen to the house from the mass of the house, the size of it, from a 17, almost 1,800 square foot house up to a 2,350 square feet, and then it's almost over 650 square foot garage. So again, I'm just here for the representation of what I'm seeing here and what is going to be ultimately at the end result of this. those are, I obviously want to remain neighborly to my neighbor, and, but I just wanted to reiterate that I'm just concerned as to how we got to this point, from a 290 square foot room addition to this. And I understand it was represented as 2 termites, but in seeing the excessive amount of grading that was occurring in the back of the house, seeing the amount of walls that were being torn down, those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Cross?
Good evening.
I am Peter Cross. I live at 3450 Sierra Glen Road, which is up around the corner from the property in question. And my only acquaintance with the owner is when he made, we'll call a presentation and explained his plans, what he wanted to do. And I don't know a lot about it, but it seemed like he was just basically going to rebuild the existing structure without any major additions or anything. And so I thought, well, sounds reasonable to me. And so again, I have no other acquaintance with him, but I just thought I'd come in and support his project.
I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
How are you informed of this December 3rd meeting?
Well, because I have to pass by the address every day whenever I go in and out. And so, but I was reminded by the owner of the meeting.
Was there a sign there, or you just
Yeah, there's a sign out front.
saying there was
Stuff, and I signed, when I spoke with him, I signed I don't think we could call it a petition, but
support letter of some
yeah, right. So I told him I would support his project. So I came in.
Appreciate you coming down.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Albert Hoffman? And I believe you're the president of the Homeowners Association.
Okay, Albert Hoffman. I'm a native resident of Glendale, and I've lived up in Montecito Park now for 49 years. I was president of the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council for about 4 years, and I've been to many DRBs. I got to say, I've never seen anything like this, where they have all these speakers come up that don't even live by the area, next to it or anything. I was first called about this project, I think around September. The neighbor south of the project on the corner of Glencoe and Vickers, she called me and says, God, this place is a disaster. I said, what's going on? So we couldn't find anything out of it. I was trying to find out what permit there was, and I couldn't seem to get anything. So I wrote an email to the city council. And I said, this is exactly what is going on in Glendale all the time. People start doing things. Developers come in, and they don't pay attention to the public. The immediate neighbors are what count here, not people that live somewhere else in Glendale, just because they think, oh, it's a nice place, and they feel sorry. I've never seen a design review board with this kind of a participation, and I hope you don't put a lot of credence in what everybody said about being in favor of it when they don't even live there. It makes no sense. So I have seen my share of manipulation on how things get built here in Glendale. The city now is more rental than it is people that own any property. It's a shame. I was born in South Glendale. It's nothing but cheap apartments now. They tore all the nice residential homes down, the single family duplexes, all gone, all what I call inferior development. It's plywood and gunite. That's what they did with these apartments some 20 years ago when they did all this stuff, or longer. So the city, I think we finally got the attention of the city council, because they keep approving things that developers do, and for some reason I've seen so many of these single property owners come in, buy something, and then they want to redo the whole damn thing. And I know there's a lot of property in Glendale and Montecito Park I've seen that's available that you could have a family move in. But this particular thing, I'm not sure how that's all going to work out. But I think the bad thing about it was the way it was done. It was, when I called the city council, I wrote to them, the following day they wrote me and they said they were going to stop the project, whatever was going on. And it's been covered ever since then. It's a disaster. I've never seen a project that was run worse than this one. And I've heard all kinds of excuses, but why? Oh, I'm going to move my family in and all that. Well, yeah, that's great, but you know, maybe he should have looked for a house in the area. There's a lot of nice homes in the Spar Heights area that are in the Fremont School District that were available for nice families. So this, I don't buy that story.
Thank you, sir.
It's a deal. So anyhow,
looks
thank
like
you.
we have a question for
I have a
you,
question
sir.
for you, sir.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Okay.
And so, from what I heard, you know, you were involved with a neighbor that lives at Glencoe and Vickers. You were called in for advice.
Well,
and by the way,
yeah.
You know, as far as your comment is concerned, as you know, we're aware of precedents as far as how DRB hearings are conducted, and we're quite used to white noise, as we call it, right? Just a lot of noise, right?
Well, I've been president of the Montecito Park Neighborhood Association now for about 5 years. And that's why they called me when they were trying to find out what to do about it.
Sure, and in the spirit of time, my question is as follows. Usually in these kind of scenarios, you have someone that's done illegal construction, whatever it may be, and there's a big disparity between what the owner wants to do and what is allowed by code or what is allowed by zoning, etc., right?
I understand all that.
We have kind of a unique situation where what's being proposed seems to be somewhat similar to what was there before. In your experience, and really as your guidance and really your opinion on the matter, what do you suggest be done here?
Well, I look at the way it looks, and that's, you know, it looks like what was there, kind of. But what they brought up is they don't know they've increased the size of the place quite a bit, and what does that really mean to the back of the property and all that? I'm not sure. I haven't been able to, I haven't been able to see anything for several months because it's just been covered with canvas.
Okay.
And are the existing walls that are there now going to come down? There's still some walls up from the previous building.
And that's why we're going to wait until the public portion is over. We have some questions for the architect and the owner, which
well,
we'll get to.
I'm kind of curious on how that's all going to work out. And
us too.
I certainly wouldn't want to have a home that had all that old wood and stuff underneath it.
Right.
If I wanted to buy it, you know. So anyhow, no, I've been experiencing this and been going around and around and around, seeing what Glendale has become, and a lot of it is nice, and some of it is not so nice. So, but no, I just find it very. When I heard all these speakers coming up that don't even live there, that shouldn't, you know, it has no bearing on whether or not.
Your time is up. I've asked questions. You answered it. Thank you very much. In the
Yeah.
spirit of
Okay.
keeping things going. Let's
All
move
righty.
on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. I believe, yeah, I've called these folks. David, did you want to come up? Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who's not spoken who would like to speak? You may come up, and you will fill out a. Come on up, please, if you've already submitted a form. I may have you can please resubmit one. Or if you state your name, I might be able to find it.
Good evening. My name is Clarice Sarkisian. I live in the neighborhood in Montecito Park. My address is 1919 Montecito Drive. I support this project. I think it's going to be very similar to what existed before, and I think it's going to be a great enhancement to our beautiful neighborhood. And as Mr. Hoffman, I share his concern that the neighborhood should be preserved as far as their how they look, as they're traditionally looked, and if anything, any new architecture or buildings are being built, it's nice to see them consistent with the neighborhood and basically have a nice house in place. Hopefully, it's going to be done soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Did you find it, Mark?
Yes, I did. So at this point, we'd open it up to the applicant group, which I would consider to be the applicant, the contractor, and the attorney, if he would like, to share collectively 15 minutes. You guys can decide who's going to go up first. No, if you have a rebuttal, if you have anything to state.
You don't need to use the full time, so if you want to add something, you could certainly do it. If not, we could ask questions as well.
And the gentleman looks like he wants to come up, but we're not.
No, not yet. Yeah, I think from what I've heard from most of the...
Name for the record.
Yeah, again, I'm sorry. This is David Kraus-Lehman, counsel for the applicant. What I heard from most of the folks that spoke was that they were in support of the project. For the few people who had some concerns, namely Ms. Petrak and her daughter, Ms. Bjornrud, it sounded to me like their concerns addressed an issue that I think there's some confusion on, which is whether or not there's an easement between the property of the Duronians and the property to the south, and whether or not there's any construction that's occurring on that easement. Just so that the Design Review Board knows, there was a dispute between the neighbor to the south, the Morellis, and the Duronians regarding whether or not an easement exists. There is not currently an easement of record on that property. The dispute was resolved, and there will be an easement in place that allows the Morellis to address some of the privacy concerns that have been articulated by their neighbors for them this evening. So that's not really an issue as far as I'm concerned for the Design Review Board to consider, because it's not within the criteria or the authority of the board as regulated by the municipal code. But I wanted to bring it to your attention because I know the comments have been made, and it probably leaves you with some open questions. There isn't any portion of the project that's going to be constructed on the slope between the Morelli's property and the Duronians' property. All of it's going to be constructed on the existing building pad. The height differential between the property of the Duronians and the property to the south is about 4.5 to 6 feet, depending on where you are along the property. With respect to the Duronians' property and Ms. Petrak's property, the height is not 16 to 20 feet. I've been on site before. I've reviewed the grading plans, and I've looked at the pad elevations between the properties. It's about 4.5 to 5 feet. You can't see any portion of the Petrak's house from the Duronians' backyard because of the way the slope works and the interaction of the slope and the fence at the top of the slope. The line of sight is not from in her house to the Duronian property. So with respect to the landscaping and the view from the yard of Ms. Petrak, you can only see the Duronians' landscaping and their yard if you're standing at the back fence and looking over the fence. So I don't think there's going to be a problem with respect to the view into the landscaping. I'll let Mr. Duronian speak more to what the landscaping is going to be, but the plan currently is for all the landscaping to remain as is. Now, having said that, the backyard, the lawn, has been removed because over the last 45 years, the accretion and accumulation of soil, and as the previous owners resodded the lawn, put the fertilizer on the lawn, as the lawns grow, they get higher. And so what happened that led to the problem that caused the demolition is the lawn increased in height over the years. There was a buildup of soil and from fertilizer and steer manure and other things that people put on their lawns. It got too high to allow proper drainage against the sill plate for the house. So when the demolition started for the remodel project, the lawn was removed, the yard was lowered a couple of inches to make sure that the soil grade was below the pad grade of the home so that there wouldn't have to be new grading and subsurface construction with respect to the foundation of the home. Once the construction is complete, the lawn's going to be put back in. All the other landscaping is going to remain the same. And so the house really, from an appearance standpoint, since it's using the same colors and materials and having the existing landscaping in place, it's going to look essentially the same. I think that addresses the issue that I wanted to rebut. None of the trees that are on site are going to be removed. The staff addressed the issue with respect to the protected species report. There isn't one because there are no protected species on site, and there's no removal of any protected tree species. With respect to the only other concern I heard, I think had to do with water flow, but there's been no change of the grade of the project location. There's no change of the surrounding grades, so there shouldn't be any change to the water flow from this particular parcel onto neighboring parcels or from neighboring parcels onto this parcel, because none of the grades have changed. I think that's it with respect to what I have for rebuttal. I'll turn it over to my client and let him address any other issues, unless you have any questions for me.
Yeah, I have a question maybe for staff, and if they can't answer it, you might have some input on it. Do we have a survey with spot elevations and contours of the site?
We have what is in your packets. We don't have any other plans. I can go through older versions of stuff and see if I have anything, but from what I remember, I don't believe we have anything outside of that information.
And to the best of your knowledge, does a topographic map exist?
Yes. There is a topographic map with site elevations and spot elevations that have been shot.
Do you happen to have it here? If you do, that'd be wonderful. You could give it to staff and they could put it up, because that would help me or... Yeah, we can't have cross-communication because it's being recorded, but if you do have it, give it to staff. If not, it sounds like they might have submitted one. If you happen to have one on file, I'd like to see it. Okay.
I will do my best to find.
Thank you.
Any other questions I can answer for you?
No,
right.
not for me. Thank you.
Mr. Villian, any questions?
Thank you.
Sir.
Yes?
As far as the topography, we do have a
Name for the
topography.
record.
I'm sorry, Farouch Andironian. I'm the owner of the property 3310 Vickers Drive. As far as topography, we conducted a topography report. And as a matter of fact, the site plan that you have there has, we created the site plan on top of the topography. And I apologize, I'm not an architect, so maybe my terminologies are not right. But if you'd like to see, I can.
Yes, can you give it to staff? And
Is-
just
is-
that
is
one
that-
sheet.
Is that different than what we already have?
No, I believe you have it.
Yeah, no,
It's the
so
same
what
drawing?
He's
It's the
pointing out
same
to the
drawing.
topographical points
So if you look at
here,
the one,
and there's another one here.
yes.
This is what he
I
means
see.
by over. 1103 and 1099.
No, yeah, I'm referring to an actual survey which goes beyond your property line and locates structures beyond your property line.
If I may come front?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. I believe we used the top of the wall, I'm sorry, thank you. Top of the wall and bottom of the wall from the neighbors, and as well as here. So those are two of the points, and I think on this elevation, we also are showing some of the measurements. So this is the north of our neighbor, this is our south side of the neighbor. Same elevation continues towards the east of our neighbor. And I also have a
So
picture.
this is gonna be more or less,
This is here, I'm sorry, let me take a look at this, 1 second, no. This is my north.
that's right, but you said it kind of continues.
Yes, it continues, and if you like, I have also pictures that represents the view from here to.
Yes, that'd be very helpful for me, thank you. You could go.
Okay. All right. Any other comments?
Should
Yeah.
I believe Mr. Simon would like to see the
Simon, you want to
pictures.
see these?
Oh, thank you. So that's the view from the old house before demolition towards the east, if I may. So you can see that this is the height, this is a fence actually, it's a wooden fence.
Let's, if we're gonna do like that, let's put it up as high as
Sure,
we
sure,
can
sure.
to,
Thank you. Let's see if this is gonna work. Oh, no, I think
so the public can see.
it pops up, so
You might need to
hopefully it's
wedge it in there.
stand.
from
She has a supply
underneath.
of recycle.
Okay, hopefully this is gonna stand. All right, so, thank you. So as you can see, this is the old wooden fence that it was there. There are concrete blocks, I believe it's called, sorry, I'm not an architect. Planter. Yeah, thank you, planter. So you can see 1, 2 steps, and that's where the grade of my neighbor is, which continues also here. So you can see this is the same elevation height, and here's the same elevation height, and this is a wooden fence. It used to be 4 feet, and now it's a 6 feet permitted, and the inspection passed also on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe there was another question that I would like to clarify. Yeah, as I mentioned, the east fence, we had a permit and the inspection passed as well. As far as landscaping, we worked with city staff and we identified the landscaping. I just can't remember the name of it, but it's in our material board. Can't remember the name of the plant that we selected.
It's a drought-tolerant grass.
Yes.
Zoysia, and I will butcher the name, but it is drought-tolerant.
Yeah, we worked with the city staff based on your recommendation, and that's what we selected for the backyard. As of why the dirt was higher, I also have a picture of that shows that over the years they added more dirt on top of each other, and that was a concern. That was the issue that we had. Because the dirt was so much higher, we noticed that as we were cleaning up the grass, we noticed that there were sprinkler systems on top of sprinkler system, and we took some picture of that. So they just added more dirt on top of that, and they raised the backyard. And that was the issue that was touching exactly the wall of the house on the east side, and so termite and damages and water problem were coming just in. So I believe those were the questions and concerns. Is there any other questions that I can help clarify?
Gentlemen, any questions?
Are the existing footings of the house remaining?
As far as the footing of the house, so the concrete, so we have a 10-foot setback from the side. So that's the guideline that we have. So on the north and south, they won't because it's going to change. As far as the east side, we are going about 9 feet out. So it's going to be new foundation. As far as the south, only the entrance is going to have new. And also the garage footing is going to stay. The remaining,
But the
because
garage is getting bigger, right?
well, we would love to keep the garage, to be honest. We would love to keep the garage as is, but I believe there's a requirement that right now the garage is only 19.5 by 19.5. Requirement is 20 by 20. So we would love to keep the garage as is and not touch that. To be honest, there's expense with that. But with the new requirements, you know, as I'm demolishing, I'm like, it's not worth it to add 6 inches. So then I'm going to use the opportunity to extend.
So basically, most of the footings are new footings.
That's correct.
And most of the walls are going to be new walls as well.
That is correct.
I assume. And basically, the roof is all new anyways.
That is correct.
So is there any part of the existing home that you're keeping?
If I may ask that question to my contractor really quickly, do you think that he's going to say anything?
Gary Sapanosian. Some of the footing, interior footing, and already we poured, it's gonna stay.
Interior footing.
And also exterior, some of the exterior, we're gonna still use it because existing footing, when we have originally, not because the building has been pushing back again to 10 feet. So those are still, we're gonna keep it and adding some of them to next to it. But as far as the north side wall, because of we cutting 5 feet, from 5 feet to 10 feet, we have to create a new footing basically on that line. That's it. And as far as the very first original permit we already have a 9 feet addition on one section, and we're only adding on the other. So those are already, we have footing already. So the flooring still is there. Everything is there. We didn't take it down. It's nothing we touch. The garage is still same. One of the wall is gonna stay same because it doesn't have any damage on it. The garage roof is still on it, and it's complete. We have all the equipment inside already. The house, everything, the furniture is still in the garage. The reason we're moving the garage because of the new code 20 by 20. If you might let us keep it, we don't have to demo the garage.
Okay, thank you.
I think I need clarification from staff, but go, Mr. Bond.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
This wall and this wall, are they new or
Which
are they
wall?
new? This and this.
The garage wall is gonna be pushed back, it's gonna be new.
So this is a new wall,
It's-
and this is a new wall?
Yes, I believe so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Holland, did you have a comment about the garage?
Basically, as mentioned, the minimum dimension for a two-car garage is 20 by 20 interior clear with a 16 by 7 door. But as you can see in the plans, and it's up to the board on which direction you want to go, it looks like they're proposing about 25 feet deep and 26 feet wide. So I believe one of Stat's comments in terms of the massing of the garage was could possibly be remedied if they did go to 20 by 20 rather than 25 by 26.
And there's no variance for maintaining the garage as is?
They could go to 20 by 20. That's the minimum dimension that they need. What they're proposing is actually larger
Sure, but we've heard applicants say that they would like to keep the garage and it's at 19.
because they're exceeding 50% removal of roof and wall area. It's considered new. With that designation of being
So there's no
new,
variance.
20 by 20 would be the minimum that they need.
Yeah. And some of the community members were saying it might be nicer if the garage stayed in its current size and location, but we cannot do that because more than 50% of the house is being touched upon.
51%.
So you need to basically bring it up to current code, which is a minimum of 20 by 20, which they're exceeding.
Correct. And if it was 19 by 19 before, you're only looking at basically popping out the walls like 1 foot from each side to get that 20 by 20.
19 foot 6 inches. It's a
Okay,
6,
6
we're talking
inches
about
out.
6
I
inch.
mean, that's-
Adding 2 by 6 and
Thank you.
outside.
No,
That
I
gets-
understand. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay.
All right. So at this point, I'm going to close the public comment hearing unless there's any other comments from. We usually don't allow that, but since you did fill out a card and you may have been confused about the process, I'll let you come up.
My name's Dave Morelli. Just to clarify for the record why I'm here, I built the house at 3300 Vickers in 1990. That's the neighbor to the house that we're talking about, the south neighbor. And lived in it for 17 years, divorced my wife. She now owns the house. So the dispute they're talking about between the parties, I have no party to. I don't even have knowledge of what the settlement was. Part of the agreement was my children will inherit that house. So I'm here just to see what's going on with my children's future inheritance.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. All right, at this point, I'm going to close the public comment process, open it up for comments. Mr. Levine, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, I appreciate everyone taking the time to come out, and I could tell this has been a long process. We do encourage applicants to, of course, communicate and reach out to the neighbors, and I thought that was comforting, the fact that there were some individuals from the neighborhood that had basically come because there was interaction between the applicant, which we always strive for, because what it does is create communication, and through communication, disputes are usually settled before they get here. So I appreciate that. Also, what's kind of unique about the situation, as I said earlier, is sometimes, or in most cases, when we have illegal demolitions, illegal additions, or whatnot, there seems to be, there typically is a large disparity between what the owner wants to do and what's allowed, or what's the neighborhood seems as acceptable. And in this case, it seems as though, although the process has been rough, the final outcome, at least, people seem to be on the same page as far as the look, feel, compatibility, etc. There are concerns which the neighbors have raised, which I'll address, and those pictures really were very helpful to me, because I was able to visualize some of the conditions that you're referring to with the property to the east. Insofar as the style of the style and the mass of the design, I don't see any major issues with that. I actually do prefer alternative B, which, you know, has been presented as a way of addressing the south setback and the roof, because as we look at the color elevations, more specifically the south elevation, that is an odd wall and that's an odd design, the way it's broken up as staff is suggesting. And I do think that the alternative as proposed by applicant this evening addresses some of those specific comments. Insofar as the backyard and the grade differences are concerned, I think it's important for us to, for the applicant to provide some more additional information to staff, maybe with more specific idea of how that rear setback is dealt with. Typically when we have new applications for submittal, we have landscape drawings associated with them. And so it'd be kind of nice to see how overall the rear is being worked out. If there is going to be a new wall that's proposed, let's talk about and let's state what type of wall that is and the location of it and the height of it. If the existing wall is to remain, then let's identify that. And if there's going to be a big grade difference, then we should talk about it and staff should have a clear idea of what that is. Insofar as the size of the garage is concerned, when we're looking at the renderings, it is a bit overpowering, I guess you might say. Proportionally, it's big. It could probably trim down to help the mass of it and the layout of it. Whether it gets trimmed down to 22 feet or whatever that number is, I think that needs to be worked out with staff. But it seems as though there are some ability to work on that. Insofar as the overall materials that's proposed in the material board, I don't particularly have an issue with. And I do think that if a landscape plan is provided, some of staff's comments about the setbacks, the hardscape, and the landscaping and how they'll integrate into one another could be worked out. So my comments would be to focus in on reduction of the garage area, to go with alternative B as far as the walls and roof is concerned. Landscape
Are you saying
plan.
B or E?
B as in boy, this, so we can make this, if the rest of the board agrees as the right approach, we could certainly make this part of the file, which I think would deal with a different roof and a different wall design in that area. Besides that, we could certainly talk about some other thoughts that come up from the discussion.
Okay. Mr. Billanian?
Okay, so I kind of join Mr. Simonian with a lot of his comments, and I'll touch up on the ones I agree with him. I think most of them. I would like to start by looking at the square footage and the initial proposal of adding like the 250 square feet and then changing. So this situation, it's kind of connected to the case that we had before, that Mr. Charshin was mentioning, that they went to the maximum allowable, which was the 30%, and they went right to the square foot in terms of size, where this has not been done in this case. So I commend the applicants for doing that. And basically his allowable is, he can go up to 3,700 square feet, and he went only to 2,350. So obviously it wasn't, so between the initial proposal, which is about 250 square feet, and this, which is 500 square feet, there's like a couple hundred square feet. So I don't see it as a major issue. So I think that's a plus when it comes to you. Second issue, I think everybody whoever spoken, even the president of the association, agreed that it's consistent with what was there before, and the character, the style, even the height, which this is another thing that struck me. I mean, the height is only changing by like 1'7", which is still very acceptable. You didn't go to the maximum allowable. So that's also another positive thing on your side. Now to come in terms of design detail, I'm fine with it because it's consistent with the prior design. Now let's touch up on the conditions that staff recommended. And the issue, I agree with Mr. Simonian. I think alternative B is a better way to go when it comes to the staggering, because you have kind of like an awkward, and also staff did a good job of picking that one up. You have kind of like an awkward condition here, and when people are driving up the street, this is like a visible portion. If this was like hidden in the back and you didn't have a neighbor that's looking into it, maybe it's fine, but this is like just an awkward condition. So I was looking at this, and you have, I think, a couple of options to do. So I asked the question of if these walls are new or existing, and the contractor mentioned that they're new. So I think one of the options is the problem with the staggering here. It's happening at multiple levels. It's happening like you have like 1, 2, 3. Like you have like 3. So you have like 3, even like 1, 2, 3. So if it was or 4. So if it was like 2, maybe it wouldn't look that bad. And to achieve that, you might lose maybe 30, 40 square feet, and that's just by pushing this line back to this line and coming out here, and maybe gain back some of the square footage by pushing this is 6 inches out or something. So I think that's an option that will help with the staggering, because now you don't have 3 multiple levels, you have like only 2. Or going with the alternative B if that's what you wish. The other condition that staff recommended was the garage, and I agree also with Mr. Simonian on that. This rendering and this rendering, it just, the garage looks too big, and not to say that it's too big, it's too big for a 2,300 square feet house. So the proportion, the garage looks like it's a major part of the house. Like it looks like this is like the house. It's not looking like it needs to be scaled down, and I agree with Mr. Simonia. Maybe you don't need to go to 20 by 20 since you're only gaining 6 inches. So maybe you can do 22 by 22 or something within that, so you can gain at least few feet by doing that. But I think it's just a little bit overscaled. So,
and the height too could really help itself.
Yeah, and the height, you can adjust the height, and I think that's gonna help also with the scale. Now, it's not a deal killer for me. I can live with it if the other board members are okay with it, but I think it's gonna help the house and it's gonna make it look nicer, so it's a positive for you. So I'm in support, and these are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Banyan. I feel compelled in my role as acting chair today to touch upon one issue before we get into my comments about design, and that is, I think the large number of people that are here. I want to voice, and I think you would join me in this, that we don't at DRB look at these matters on a popularity basis. We don't look to see how many people showed up on one side or the other. We have had situations with lots of opposition, but the design and the property rights of the individual have allowed that project to go forward. And we've had situations that are very much in favor, where we have had significant redesign issues that we've dictated because there are issues with design. Okay? This is about the feedback process is about every person having a voice, whether they are local to the neighborhood or somewhere in Glendale or anywhere outside of Glendale. It's an open hearing. So I want to make sure everyone's encouraged to participate in future hearings And even if it's to come up as many people did today to say that they're in favor and sitting down. I think maybe the applicant felt a little bit of pressure, having seen some of the other DRB processes that have happened in the past where we've had packed audiences and it's become very heated. But here I agree with Mr. Simonian's comments. I didn't hear anyone say that the design was offensive, that it was just too massive, and I do agree with Mr. Bellion. Your comment that the applicant has not pushed the envelope here is very commendable. I mean, if I was a neighbor and we have someone that doesn't even live there in the audience but is concerned about future, rights that his children are going to have, I would be concerned about somebody buying this property and going and pushing the envelope, trying to get to the 3,600 square foot home, which a lot of people would say would be a McMansion in this neighborhood, right? And if that home was properly designed with mass and scale issues at 3,600 square feet, it might go through. Here you have an applicant that said, no, I want the traditional home. And I understand that we're here because of the fact that a project that was envisioned failed. Whatever reason that failed, we're here, and I'm sure that the applicant would have preferred not to be here. But we are here, and we're looking at it from a design perspective. And so, from a design perspective, my issue with the garage, and I'll start there because that seems to be the point of agreement here, is a little too long. The interior width, I'm okay with, but the length of it and how it protrudes almost into the street is a little too long. I think you gain a little bit of reduction in mass, and you get a more appropriate balance between the home and the garage portion of the house by scaling that back a couple feet. I wouldn't, go to 2020. I would work with staff to see how that works out. I do think that this second option is a better option because it provides a little bit more profile than the roof, and I think it's much more of a softer feel than the neighbors would want. And I don't think some of the neighbors have seen this. I don't know if they have, so I would leave it here for them to see it if they'd like. But it cuts the volume so that you're not looking. And I want to see if I can. Everything is below grade here for the viewing audience. But basically, it would not have such a large mass of visible space. It would cut into that. So I think that's okay. I think that we would benefit with a little more detail on the landscaping. Even though it's not really much of a detail, it's going to be grass, but I think just having it on a separate piece with some clarification might assist staff when they are, checking the progress and the city departments when they're checking the progress of this project. I learned something new today, that there are sycamores that are not protected because of species. I was going to have a lot of issue with that, but we're not going to go there. And then the other issues that were mentioned were resolved, with easements and so forth. The comment on easements and covenants are that they're, civil issues, not within the purview typically of DRB. We will hear those issues out, but unless they affect design, they're matters that the parties need to deal with directly. So with that, I can support the project. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, may staff take a look at the proposed
Sure.
plan? I don't think we've seen those.
If there's a way, do you have this electronically?
Yes, of course, you have to electronically, and you can submit that to staff.
No, do you have it electronically now?
Oh, yes, I do. I can open
Okay.
it up in Gmail if that's.
Okay, can we get this actually on the screen? He has it on his email account.
I can open it up here if you like to see it.
Do we have that capability? No? I don't think we don't have that capability for you to access the city computer. If you had an email that you could forward it to.
Sure.
Do we don't have that capability, Brad?
My concern, I'm sorry, my concern was that at least the two plans that were submitted is just a roof plan and it looks like a floor plan. The concern I had without staff seeing this before is just to make sure that it meets the setback requirements.
Understood. And that's why I think it's important for us to holistically hear the conditions. Because I heard two things. You know, we have a suggestion as to how we could treat that south facade, but we're not saying it's the Bible. And it's not very prescriptive. There were also other comments that were made by Mr. Billiam, which is maybe only have 2 breaks in the wall, right? So let's go over the conditions, because what we might actually end up
That's
doing
true.
is you know, prescribing, is approving a condition that will give staff the ability to review what's proposed as alternative B, and maybe even coming up even a better design, which would
Makes
you know,
sense.
simplify that facade, and it'll be a nicer facade between your property, what you will see from your property into the subject property.
We basically have 3 conditions. The applicant is to work with staff in simplifying the roof form and the mass, and reduce the number of offsets. This could be accomplished by either using alternative B, which was offered by the applicant this evening and appears to be acceptable, or considering reducing the square footage somewhat to eliminate one of the offsets.
I think it was 2 the offsets, to just have 2 offsets instead of 4.
You would get.
There's an offset
You
at the
would get
garage.
3 instead of 4, I think. Well, also with the garage being reduced, you would also be able to possibly eliminate that.
And I think all I would add in that condition is the south mass, because you said mass
Yes.
referring to the
Yes.
south.
Yes.
The rest seems fine.
Okay. The applicant should provide a landscape plan and clearly show rear setbacks and how it will be landscaped, indicating any proposed walls, their height, the grading, and this is also an opportunity to work out any kind of hardscape detailing. And then also to reduce the size of the garage somewhat. It can be larger than 20 by 20, but it should be reduced by a few feet in each direction.
Were there any, need to repeat any, were there staff conditions? I think so, yeah. So did we need to read those into?
It was
That's
the
more or
same,
less.
it was in the
Same
Yeah.
category we
The
find?
only, the consideration for the massing for the garage is now becoming a condition of approval. It was originally a consideration in our recommendation to you.
That's right, that dovetails, so consideration number 1 actually turned into condition number 3.
Yeah, and then the first condition regarding that southerly elevation more or less will be the same. We'll reword it to reflect a little more detail. And then the other condition regarding the landscape plan to address the hardscaping as well, so.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the project with the stated conditions and the added conditions.
Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Board Member Benlian?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes?
Chair Pro Tem Charchian?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We do have minutes to review and approve. Please, no conversation in the dais area. We're still in meeting.
Yeah, you all could speak outside if you choose, because we still have the hearing going on. Thank you.
So we
Mr.
have-
Chairman, we have minutes from January 20th, if I can get a motion and a second.
Has someone had a chance to review those and would like to make a motion?
Were we all here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we're all here.
Oh. Yeah, I'll move the conditions from January the 20th.
The minutes.
The minutes, I'm sorry.
I'll,
What did I say?
I'll second that.
What did I say?
Move the conditions.
Yeah.
This will be roll call, Mr. Simonian,
Yes.
Mr. Benlian,
Yes.
Mr. Charchian,
Yes.
and do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion adjourned.
Second.